Yes, good afternoon, guys. Hmm. Okay. Okay. Guys, good afternoon. Okay. Guys, did you add third hour class? I mean, is it still going on? Any idea, guys? Because I see very less students. Or do you have any other activity now? Can somebody respond? It's almost close to 10 minutes into the class. It's still going on. Okay, okay, it's still going on now. Okay, okay, okay. What about you guys? We left the class, is it? There are 13 students in this in my class now. Whose class is that is? Can you please tell me the subject? Of course, I can check the timetable, no doubt. But in case sometimes faculties may have swapped the class or exchanged. Um, you know, that's all possible. Which hour is that? Third hour. Today is mm, fourth year, no? Fourth year. Today is Thursday. Okay. Whose class is this? Let me check. No, fourth year, no? Thursday is EM2. Oh, Nandan sir. Oh, Nandan sir is taking. Okay, 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 okay. Fine, fine, fine. Hmm. Yes, by the way, who is taking with Nandan sir or Satish sir? I think Satish sir said that you will take the class. Is Satish sir engaging or Nandan sir? Third hour is engaged by you. Because I can check here. No problem. Hmm. Okay. Who's engaged in third hour guys? Is it Nandan sir or somebody else? Because it was Nandan sir class. Mm. Because I'm waiting for students to join, you know. As soon as they join, we'll start the discussion. Okay. This is okay. 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 Please can you tell me who has ended third hour guys? No, just out of curiosity because this time, you know, I think maybe to complete the test portion, we have continued. Not a problem. Okay, it happens, you know, no issues. Last hour we had okay webinar is it? Okay, okay, fine, fine, no problem. That's what he said. No, that's what I thought. You know, because even if it is Nandan sir, Satish sir, fine. It may take 9.5 minutes. Okay, okay. Is it over guys by now? I mean webinar. Uh, I think it was for 1 hour, I guess. You know. Oh, correct. So I guess I'm sorry. Yesterday, Madam I shared that webinar. Details. Correct. It was at 11:15, I guess. I think 11 or 11:15. Sorry, forgot that. Madam has shared the detail with faculties also, with all of us. Okay, that there will be webinar in the third hour. Okay, fine, fine. Okay, no issues. Okay, I guess what about others? So almost close to 15 minutes. Okay, well, maybe the webinar maybe got over little late. Okay, so okay, let us start. Because you guys are also waiting, way to waste your time. Let us start. Okay. Um, So last class we discussed the design of a triangular and rectangular waveform generator using a numerical example. So let's kind of discuss that, continue the discussion on that. Um, okay, if it is sharing, here it is. Okay, okay. So the design was to design a triangular rectangular waveform generator to have a amplitude of of course, amplitude of 2.5 volts and frequency range of 200 hertz to 2 kilohertz with a duty cycle adjustment of 20% to 80% and supply voltage of plus or minus 15 volts. Okay. So bipolar op amps make sure that this gives an idea that example like 741 op amp has a base current maximum of 500 nanoamperes. 500 nanoamperes. Okay, because this may not be the case for a bi-FET op amp. Bi-FET op amp, if when we select one bi-FET op amp for the design, you have to check the IP max from its um, data sheet. Okay, and also this capacitor selection becomes different for bipolar op amp as well as for a bi-FET op amp. So this is very important. Okay. Okay, yes, last class we had seen this, design of a the Schmidt trigger part. Okay, with the current I3, we designed the value of, we understood R2 selection of R2 and R3. Okay, so next was the design of a integrator circuit. Okay, so integrator circuits same assumption that current even should be at least 50 microamperes. The reason for that is this current I1 flowing through the capacitor C1 is assumed to be very large current, larger than the current flowing into the input of the inverting input terminal of the operational amplifier, that is A1, which is part of the integrator circuit. Okay, so with that assumption, we also understood why the current should be very high. Otherwise, it will also affect the capacitor selection also. Okay. Current, if it is too small, then the other resistance values will be very large. So all those factors to be considered. Okay. Yes. Now at lowest. Okay. Now this also we understood. There is at the lowest frequency. Okay. Uh, so at the lowest frequency means, yes, for example, if it is something like this. Okay, if it is something like this, at the lowest frequency, let's say this is the time period, for example, t1 t, for example. So larger the time period, smaller is the frequency. At the smallest frequency, okay, that means at the largest time period, what is the maximum pulse width? If I can pick up one more color, what is the maximum pulse width? Last class we understood, this k cannot be equal to 1. Definitely not possible. What is k? There is a duty cycle k cannot be equal to 1. If it is 1, it is not a pulse. Okay, it is just a DC. It is like a straight line. Okay, it is no more a pulse. Okay, so k should be less than 1. Duty cycle should be less than 1. So thereby, at the lowest frequency, which gives the maximum time period, what is the maximum pulse width? For that maximum pulse width maximum, we have to select the components. Okay, fine. So that is at the lowest frequency, pulse width maximum is 80%. Okay, because it is given, there is a design is for 20% and 80% of uh, the duty cycle adjustment, because the idea is that if the if the components are selected for the maximum pulse width, maximum pulse width, then that can be applied for minimum pulse width also. So with that idea, the maximum pulse width is uh, selected first. So for that, the component values are designed. Okay, 80% of Tmax. Okay, what is the lowest frequency? The range of the frequency adjustment range of frequencies are 200 hertz to 2 kilohertz. The lowest frequency being 200 hertz. 200 hertz. Okay, so 80% of the 200 hertz. Okay, that is zero point 0.8 of maximum time period. There is nothing but the lowest frequency. So 80% of maximum that is pulse width maximum 80% of the total frequency is around 4 milliseconds. Okay, so for this 4 milliseconds, we have to first select the value of C1. So I1 is known. I1 is known in the sense we have concluded that I1 should be at least 50 microamperes. So delta T is the pulse width maximum. Okay, there is change in the time. There is maximum duty cycle, and delta V is the voltage. Okay, voltage applied to the circuit. There is, in this case, the voltage is the input for this Schmitt-Trigger circuit is a triangular waveform, and input for the integrator is the square waveform. Okay. So 50 microamperes I1, 4 millisecond is the pulse width maximum, and 5 volt is the voltage. Okay, so the value of C1 is point um, 0.04 microsecond, which happens to be a standard value. I think somebody is on the line. Okay, which happens to be a hold on a second. I'll close this. Okay, which happens to be a standard value for a capacitor. Okay, capacitor C1. Okay, let us continue this. This one. Okay, here we go. Okay, this what. Okay, next we have to select the resistance values. See, first we have designed the this Schmitt-Trigger circuit. We have selected value of R2, R3. Okay, and next we selected the value of C1, assuming the value of I1. Okay. Next is we have to select R4, R5, which are the potentiometer, and R6 and R7. Okay. So that should complete the of course D1, D2, of course D1, D2. With that, it completes the design of the triangular and rectangular waveform generator. Okay. So for R4, there is to find out the value of the resistances. R4, R5, R6, according to the equation what we discussed, this is equal to 14 volts. That is saturation voltage of the output of this Schmitt-Trigger circuit. That is square pulse. It is saturating voltage, and minus the voltage drop across the diode, conducting diode, forward bias diode, 0.7 volts divided by the current. Okay, it is approximately 266 kiloohms. Yes, at this stage we should not find out the standard value for this 266 kiloohms. Why? Because it is not a single resistance, it is sum of these three resistances. Okay, so for this we should not find a standard value. Okay, standard value is applicable only for the individual resistors, not for the group of resistors. Okay, fine. So from this value, so what is IF2? Because if you observe this IF2, there is a current flowing in through the diode. Okay, here it is IF2. Okay, current flowing through the diode. This current flowing through the, based on the current flowing through the diode, we can select the values of resistors. Okay, so because we have two currents, one is I1, that is charging current. The other current I2 is the the discharging current of the capacitor. Okay. So for IF2, the design values are I1 minimum into other case. This is based on the ratio. There is, we had I1 by, I1 minimum by I2, uh, and is equal to F1 divided by F2. Okay, based on this ratio of current to frequency, this we, discussed in the design in the last class. So for IF2, it is I1 minimum, that is current, minimum charging current of the capacitor. F2 is the upper cutoff frequency. Okay, highest frequency ranges 2 kilohertz, and F1 is the lowest frequency, 200 hertz. Okay, so from that we get F2, IF2 value as 500 microamperes. Okay, now we have to find out of these three resistance, we have to find out R4 as the unknown resistance value. Okay, so for that we find out R5 plus R6. Yes, what is this R5 plus R6 is? If you observe this in this diagram, R5 plus R6 gives the path for the current I1. R5 plus R6 gives the path for the current I1. Okay, whereas R7 and R5 gives the path for the discharging current. Okay, so with that understanding, R5 plus R6 can be, you know considered as V naught saturation, that is same as the earlier expression, minus Vf, that is forward drop of the conducting diode, divided by IF2. Okay, so IF2 in this case is 500 microamperes. So from that we get approximately 26.6 kilo. Again, for this we should not find out the standard value. Why? Because it is not a single resistance. It is a group of resistance. Okay, so from the previous equation, from this equation, there is this equation and this equation, we can find out the value of R4 as equal to, just a second, R4 is equal to, from this expression we get the value of R4 as 240 kiloohms. Okay, since it is a potentiometer, okay, we have to select next standard potentiometer value. If you see the this, hold on, just a second, I'll open the standard uh, resistor capacitor table. Okay, so for a potentiometer there is a separate the table is given. So for example, for a 240 kilo, the next standard value is 250 kilo ohms. Okay, so based on this selection, based on this table, we can select the standard value of the resistance potentiometer. Okay, so R4 is 250 kilo ohm standard potentiometer. Okay, so from this we get the value as R4 is 250 kilo ohms. Okay, and what about R6 and R7 is? Okay, that is okay. So for pulse width maximum, that is at the lowest frequency F1, that is 200 hertz. At 200 hertz, pulse width maximum is 4 milliseconds. This was found, initially, it was found in the initial steps. Okay, now for the lowest pulse width. Okay, that is, in this case, we found out the value of R4. Okay, for the maximum pulse width. Somebody is on the line. Yes. Okay, so we found out the value of just a second, just a second. Okay, so we found out the value of R4 for the maximum pulse width maximum. Now we'll find out the other values. We have to find out R5, R6, and R7, because R5 is for the pulse width adjustment. So these three values can be found, provide, because R4 maximum indicates, sorry, not R4 maximum, it is R4, value of R4 indicates that frequency adjustment. Okay, so when we can find out the value for the least frequency, by varying R4, we can obtain the range of frequency. That is, we can vary from 200 hertz to 2 kilohertz. Yes, just a second, just a second. Give me a second, yes. Okay, yes, please hold on for a few minutes. I'll be back. Just a few minutes. Yes, apologies. I know I had to. Somebody was on the door. Okay, I had to rush. There no power. Okay, here we go. Okay. Yes. Pulse. Okay, pulse. I was talking about pulse width minimum. So once the R4 value is found for the least frequency, we can vary the value of R4. To get the frequency in the range of 200 hertz to 2 kilohertz. Okay. So next for R4, R5, R6, R7 is obtained since R4 is for the duty cycle adjustment. R5 is obtained for the pulse width minimum. So the pulse width minimum is 20% of the maximum time period. So maximum time period is at the lowest frequency again, because we know that lower the frequency, maximum is the time period. It's around 1 milliseconds. Sorry. So for R5, sorry, R6, so we can find out the value of R6 from this equation. R5 plus R6 into the pulse width minimum divided by pulse width maximum. So from this we get the value of R6 as 6.6 kilo ohm. Standard value is 6.8 kilo ohm. Why? Because again the same understanding, 6 point in 5% tolerance, 6.6 kilo ohm. 6.6 kilo ohm is somewhere here. Okay, 6.6 kilo ohm. 6.6 kilo ohm. Okay, this what happens is that the lowest standard value is 6.2, highest is 6.8. What is the effect of selecting uh, R6 as 6.2 or 6.8? Okay, if you see this equation, if R6 is selected less, that means pulse width maximum will be high. But we have to maintain the pulse width, duty cycle in the range of 20 hertz to 80 hertz. That means maximum limit on the duty cycle is 80%, not hertz. Sorry, 80%. So not to increase this maximum pulse width range, okay, slightly closer value selected. In this case, what happens is that the closest value is 6.8 kilowatts. 6.8 kilowatts. Okay, that's the idea. Nothing wrong, I mean, even if 6.6 kilowatts is selected, then also what will happen is 6.2, not 6.6. Sorry, even 6.2 kilowatts is selected. Pulse width maximum will be little high. See, somewhere we have to stretch either at the maximum pulse width or at the minimum pulse width. Okay, it's just a design selection criteria. Okay, so nothing disaster will happen, but this gives a good idea about the selection of the resistance values based on the pulse width preferences. Okay, okay. Once R5 is R6 is known, we can find out R5 from this expression. Okay, So R5 plus R6 minus R6, so it's around 20 kilo ohms. R5 happens to be a potentiometer. Okay, so when we see the potentiometer values, 20 kilo ohm happens to be a standard potentiometer value. So straight away we can select the 20 kilo ohm potentiometer. So R5 is the 20 kilo ohm potentiometer. Okay, yes, in this case, for a duty cycle, okay, there is duty cycle in the sense uh, why R6 is equal to R7. Okay, for symmetry of operation, symmetrical operation, R6 should be equal to R7. That's fine. Now, in this case, what happens is that that R6 value selected at the pulse width minimum. Okay, so this we can see that it is selected for the pulse width minimum, because if we observe this you know charging and discharging cycle. Okay, okay, in this case, pulse width minimum. Okay, this is the minimum pulse width, and we have two cases here. This is the maximum pulse width, and this is the minimum pulse width. Okay, so maximum pulse width or minimum pulse width happens during the charging of the capacitor. Okay, so charging of the capacitor will determine the pulse width range, minimum or maximum, and the charging happens through resistance R5 and R6. Even in that, to be more particular, R5A and R6. Charging happens through R5A and R6. Discharge should happen through R7 and R5. R6, R7 is equal, no problem. Okay, but in this case, R5 has two parts, R5A and R5B. If R5 maximum, the R5 is selected for the minimum pulse width, by varying R5, the thing is, if minimum pulse width, if R5 is selected, okay, by varying R5, that is by decreasing R5, the current can be varied such that maximum pulse width can be attained. Maximum pulse width can be attained. Okay, that is the reason why R5 is selected for the minimum pulse width. Okay, whereas when we saw that R4 was selected for the maximum pulse width. Why? Because maximum pulse width gives the minimum frequency. At minimum frequency f1, if a R4 is selected, then by varying R4 we can stretch the charging current. We can vary the charging current in such a way that frequency of the signal can be improved. Minimum frequency means maximum pulse width. By varying R4, the time period can be decreased, that is Tmax can be decreased, so that the frequency can be increased. So frequency of the signal can be increased. That is the basic idea. Okay, so based on that concept, R5 and R6 are selected. Okay, I guess is that war on the seminar? Okay, anyway, no problem. No issue. No problem. Okay, yes, that's about design. Okay, so we may have similar problem in test or examples, with variation in terms of like voltage or frequency range or the duty cycle. Okay, this plus or minus 15 volts, usually plus or minus 12 volt is common. What we used to use in our laboratories, op-amp labs or plus or minus 12 volts, plus or minus 15 volts, even plus or minus 10 volts are also common. No problem. Okay. That's how it is. Okay. So what is the other possibility? Of course, the problem is not given in this textbook. For bi-FET op-amps, the design procedure will be quite different, because there it starts with the design of C1. Okay. Here, what we have done in this bipolar op-amp is that first we have selected I1. From I1 we have selected C1. But bi-FET op-amps, it starts with the selection of C1. Okay. So that's all. It's quite different. Okay, but in many applications, bi-FET op-amps are preferred than bipolar op-amps. Okay, yes, next is, let's quickly jump to this phase shift oscillator. Let me go to the circuit diagram. It's very simple. Yes, this is similar to RC phase shift oscillator we discussed with respect to BJT. Similar to that, we have an op-amp here, but the op-amp, because op-amp is acts as an ideal amplifier, this has more advantage. Okay, very simple operation is, by the way, first we have to identify what is the the type of op-amp we have here. Okay, The op amp, because the three possibilities: inverting amplifier, non-inverting amplifier, or it can be voltage follower, which is also called as a buffer circuit. It's a voltage follower is also in some textbook. You may find the term buffers. Buffers is nothing but voltage follower circuit, or it may be differential amplifier. Other possibilities: differential amplifier. Any op amp you see in any application, it will be one of these possibility: inverting amplifier, non-inverting amplifier, voltage follower, or differential amplifiers. In this case, the op amp is a what kind of amplifier is? It is an inverting amplifier because the voltage is applied to the inverting input terminal and the non-inverting input terminal is grounded, and then this condition is called as a what do you guys call this as virtual ground. This is known as a virtual ground. Virtual ground. Okay, right. Here we go. Okay, so the gain of this op amp stage, inverting amplifier op amp stage is minus R2 by R1, minus R2 by R1. Okay, that's again anyway, no problem. Okay, at the feedback part, there is because what is the oscillator, guys? What are the conditions to be required for the oscillator to oscillate? That is Barkhausen criteria. So Barkhausen criteria says A beta should be greater than or equal to 1, and total phase shift across the network, across the circuit, total phase shift phi should be equal to 0 degree or 360. 0 degree. Okay. If these two conditions are satisfied, that results in oscillations. Okay, so oscillations requirement here is to be satisfied, that of total phase shift, that is second condition of total phase shift to be 0 degree or 360 degree. Sorry, okay, 0 degree or 360 degree is satisfied by the fact that inverting amplifier provides a phase shift of minus 180 degree. It is minus because it's inverting. If the input is positive, output is negative. Okay, with that sense. Okay, next, the uh, feedback network, which is a combination of resistors and capacitors, is that if you can observe this resistor and capacitor, this is RC network. Okay, so there are three capacitors and three resistors. Okay, this R1, which is the input resistor for the inverting amplifier, is also the part of the feedback network. Is also the part of the feedback network. That's why if you see the nomenclature, this is R1, this is R. That means R is not equal to R1. Okay, but it is selected in such a way that this resistor, instead of using one more resistor, this R1 is also included as part of the feedback network called as a phase shift network, so that that provides the total phase shift required for the oscillations. Okay, so three capacitors, equal capacitors are used. This phase shift network provides a additional phase shift of minus 180 degree. Okay, so minus 180 degree from op amp inverting configuration and minus 180 degree. So total phase shift is 360 degree. Of course, minus 360, but anyway, its total phase shift is 360 degree. Okay, so if you can observe, the output voltage is uh, uh, is the if it is something like this, feedback voltage from the phase shift network is, so there is a phase shift of minus 180 degree. Okay, so in this case, the each net stage provides a phase shift of 60 degree. This you have studied, guys, in the ADC course you have studied. Each stage provides the 60-degree phase shift. Okay, so total phase shift is um, 180 degree. Yes, okay, total phase shift is 180 degree. Fine. No problem. Okay, this is what explained here. The Barkhausen criteria is also explained. There is loop gain and the phase shift condition. Okay, so total phase shift is 180-degree. Oh, okay. It is phase lag network. Okay, there are two possibility that it can be phase lead network or phase lag network. Even if it is phase lead network is used, which gives plus 180-degree, total phase shift is 0. Phase lag network provides minus 180-degree. Still, the total phase shift is 360-degree. Okay, so either 0 degree or okay, 360-degree. Either one of them. If it is true, it results in a oscillations. That's not a problem. Okay. Okay. Next is the how to select the component, design procedure, design concept. So frequency of oscillator depends on the capacitor and resistor values. Okay. Because say if you observe this network guys, if you observe this circuit, nowhere we are providing any voltage. Just like in earlier triangular and rectangular waveform generator also, we are not providing any network, voltage to the circuit, external voltage. There is AC voltage to the circuit, but still it is generating the oscillations. Okay, by making use of the only the DC voltage applied to the circuit. Okay, fine. It's not like you cannot say it's a DC to AC conversion, but it is a oscillator. Basically, it's an oscillator which generates the oscillations using the phase shift network. Okay, so this phase shift can be, I think this phase shift concept, I don't know whether you guys have studied in ADC course. I don't remember. ADC course. Okay, I think that you may be studying in your control systems also. Okay, in phase shift network can be of two types. One is phase lag network, and the other is you know phase lead network. Okay, phase lag or phase lead network. Okay, so when to use phase lag or when to use phase lead network. Okay, so this can somebody answer that this before we continue? When to use phase lag network and when to use phase lead network? Can somebody answer that question, please? Phase lag network or what is known as a phase lead network. So phase lag network, okay, the basic idea is, if a circuit, let us say we have a oscillator or any circuit for that matter, okay. Let us say it is generating some phase shift, okay, phase shift, and this phase shift is, for example, is phase lag, for example, okay. Now, to to overcome this phase lag, we design a circuit phase shift network, basically phase shift network, okay, such that this phase shift network should reduce this lag. So for that, phase shift network should be a phase lead network. Phase lead network. If the phase shift of this circuit is lead, then the phase shift network should produce a phase lag. The phase shift circuit should produce a phase lag so that it compensates. That's why phase lag and phase lead networks are called as compensatory networks. It is called as a compensatory networks. What is meaning of compensatory networks? It will compensate for any lag or lead obtained from the circuit or amplifiers. Okay, why to compensate for the phase lag or phase lead? Okay, this lag and lead can result in instability of the circuit. It can result in instability of the circuit. For example, it is an oscillatory circuit. Okay, let's say I want to prevent oscillations. But because of this lag and lead condition, lag or lead condition, okay, there may be some oscillations occurring in the circuit. To overcome that, we can introduce a phase shift network, which provides the phase shift in such a way that this lead or lag condition can be overcome or compensated to stabilize the circuit operation. Okay, so that's the basic idea. Okay, so thereby in this case, what we have now is that the phase shift network. Okay, okay, sorry. So in this case, that's why we have a phase shift network. So the circuit is generating the frequency at a particular rate, which depends on the capacitor and the resistor values. So if equal resistor and capacitor values are used, okay, so RC circuit can be analyzed. Okay, because there is a design, but we can look into that derivation. Okay, so to get the AC, and in the next class I'll show you. It is in the okay. I think I have not shared that you know appendix pages, where there is a derivation. Okay, I'll show you that in the next class. So it can be analyzed that the impedance of the capacitor is square root of 6. Okay, that is assuming that capacitor values are equal and resistor values are equal. Okay, so for equal value of resistor and capacitors, the frequency of oscillation can be written as can be determined as, that is x is 1 by 2 pi fc, 1 by 2 pi fc. So by rearranging this expression, 1 by 2 pi fc is equal to square root of 6 into r. We get the frequency as 1 by 2 pi r in rc square root of 6. This is the frequency of the output of the oscillator. Okay, because in this case actually we can read the output from the output of the op amp, okay, or from the this feedback network. Okay, that's possible. So to analyze further, we can obtain the okay. So now there is one more condition. In addition to providing phase shift, RC network attenuates the amplifier output. Okay, why attenuates? Because there is a resistor, definitely there is a power loss, and then there is attenuation in terms of amplitude of the output of the amplifier. Okay, so network analysis, I mean this circuit analysis shows that for a required 180-degree phase shift, the RC network has an attenuation factor of 29. This again there is a derivation for this. This I'll show you. Why it is 29? Why not 30? Why not 28? Okay, so that question is obvious. So this derivation I'll show you. Okay, so the amplifier must have a voltage gain of at least 29, so that first condition of the Barkhausen criteria satisfied. What is Barkhausen criteria, guys? A beta should be greater than or equal to 1. Why A beta? Okay, why this gain of the that the amplifier should be equal to at least 29? The reason for that is this phase shift network acts as a attenuator, and this attenuator factor is around 29. Attenuation factor is 29. Okay, let us say for example if the gain is 1, let us just to understand, just for understanding purpose, if this gain is 1, gain of this amplifier, let us say A is 1, and if this attenuation factor is 29, what will happen is the output of this amplifier, which is fed as input to the this phase shift network, will reduce the amplitude by 29. Will reduce the amplitude by 29. Okay, and when A beta factor is considered, amplitude of this amplifier is 1. I can write like this. Amplitude of this amplifier is 1, and the gain of this what do you call it, phase shift network is 1 by 29. Okay, so which will not be equal to 1. In fact, it is less than 1. Okay, 1 by 29, which is less than 1. So the condition for the oscillation, for the first condition of oscillation, that A beta should be greater than 1. In this case, A corresponds to the gain of the inverting amplifier, beta corresponds to the gain of the RC phase shift network. The product of this should be greater than or equal to 1. For this to be greater than or equal to 1, we cannot modify the gain of the amplifier network. It remains at 29. That is gain beta is 1 by 29. 1 by 29. For this to be true, that is first condition of the oscillations Barkhausen criteria to be true, that is beta is 1 by 29, and this A beta should be greater than or equal to 1. The gain of the amplifier should be at least 29, so that A beta will be greater than or equal to 1. Okay, that means we have to design this amplifier, we have to design this inverting amplifier such that gain should be at least equal to 1. Gain of the inverting amplifier should be equal to I'm sorry, not 1, guys, I'm sorry. Gain should be at least 29, so that the condition for the oscillation, first condition of the oscillation, is satisfied. Okay, yes, the design the derivation I'll show in the next class. That is not scanned. I think I'll do one thing. By possibly today or by tomorrow, I'll scan all those derivations from the appendix pages of the textbook. I'll share it. Yesterday somebody was asking for the textbook soft copy, but I don't have complete textbook soft copy. Okay, anyway, so that is the minimum requirement for the oscillation. Okay, so amplifier gain is less than 29, circuit will not oscillate. Because of this reason. 29 into 1 by 29. So this is A and this is beta. If A is less than 29, A is less than 29. So A beta will be less than 1. No oscillations. Okay, when the gain is sustainably greater than 29, oscillator output. Okay, so the oscillator output waveform is likely to be distorted. Okay, so if the gain is less than 29, output is distorted, it will not give a proper oscillations. A gain slightly greater than 29 gives a reasonably undistorted sinusoidal waveform. Okay, so we get a oscillations but it is undistorted. Okay, undistorted sinusoidal waveform. So preferably it should be slightly greater than 1. It should not be too high. It cannot be like 35 or 40. It should be slightly greater than 29. Okay, so in the absence of amplitude stabilization, the output peak will approach the positive negative saturation of the voltage. So we have to prevent the saturation of the output voltages. How to stabilize, we'll discuss in the next class. Okay, it's fine. Thank you. I think today, because of the that seminar, it's good that you attended webinar. I think the webinar was about because what I would what the webinar was connected with. Sorry, I forgot. Madam has shared the uh, webinar was on. Okay, anyway, that's hopefully that's useful for you guys. Okay, yes, thank you. Thanks for joining. See you in the next class. Take care.